Every year, on the 25th of April, all over Australia, a ceremony is held. One of remembrance, one of honour, one of pride. ANZAC Day is possibly the most universally celebrated holiday in Australia, with monuments present all the way from small country towns up to the country's capitals. It acts as a time to honour, mourn, and reflect upon the lives and losses of those in Australia's Defence Force. First celebrated on the 25th of April 1916, ANZAC Day was used as a time to commemorate those lost during the Battle of Gallipoli the year earlier. I met with Wing Commander Robertson to discuss the topic further.
The ANZACs were the members of the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. They were a corps amongst other corps that were part of a much larger expeditionary force in the very early days of World War I.
On the shores of the Gallipoli Peninsula, approximately 16,000 Australians landed on what is now known as ANZAC Cove, in the hopes of gaining some territory to use against the German allied Ottoman Empire.
But the ANZACs unfortunately arrived to be met by this wall of hills virtually as soon as you get off the beach, which of course gave the Turks an ideal situation to be able to, of course, have guns and train them on the ANZACs, of course, trying to land.
Nowadays, ANZAC Day is celebrated all across the country in a myriad of ways.
Every ANZAC Day in virtually every Australian city, town, even small towns and villages, there is always a dawn service, there is always some sort of march, there are often church services. It's a time for Australians to come together to remember those first ANZACs, but also, of course, others that have served, that have worn this country's uniforms in wars and conflicts since.
On the morning of the 25th, at approximately 5 in the morning, the minute of silence is held.
This minute of silence that is in the middle of the ceremony, certainly it is time for people to pause, to reflect, and yes, it is usually something that is quite meaningful, so that people just stop and there is silence. And, you know, in larger places, of course, to have everybody stop for that minute. I've, of course, been to the dawn service in Canberra when something like 50,000 people gathered, and you still could have heard a pin drop, apart from the birds starting to sing their Australian anthem of their own.
Within the Australian veterans community are various groups with the aim of uniting these veterans and helping to sustain the familial bonds forged by the Defence Force.
We're in the RAF Memorial Centre here, where at the end of the service at Cenotaph, people come back here. And we do have a number of people who are ex-serving members who, of course, can't go and march. And so it's important for them to gather with their friends and, yes, still take part in the traditions.
I will now conclude with 2 unedited clips from the interview with Wing Commander Robertson.
Why do you get people that turn out to watch the march, or get out of their beds at 4 in the morning to go and attend a dawn service somewhere? Most of the time with people that would never get out of their beds to go and attend a church service somewhere. So it's deep in this country's fabric and nature to honour what's happened in the past. And my view, of course, being an oral historian, is that if you don't honour, if you don't uphold these traditions publicly, then you will forget them privately. And every time we say, lest we forget, we remember all of those that have served in wars, in conflicts, from now back to the ANZACs, and indeed earlier, even to the Boer War. But we weren't a federated country then, and so we remember and honour them. Look, we can learn so much. We can learn about courage. We can learn about mateship. We can learn about responsibility, not letting our allies down. We can learn about what it means to wear a uniform to serve our country, so that wearing the uniform on a daily basis or out in the street, somebody sees you and knows what that uniform means. And that means you as an individual wearing that uniform also has to think about what it means for you and what it means for your service and your country.
My name is Roy Crawley. Thank you for watching.